afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Two-A-Days. 12 o'clock every day, and then again at 7 p.m. every day. Huge announcement. Huge announcement. General Michael Flynn, as long as everything goes okay, should be here at 12:30. We should be talking to General Michael Flynn at 12:30. Kicking things off differently here, trying to go big, trying to go hard right off the bat. With our buddy Dan Bongino now being sworn in as the Deputy Director of the FBI, and with Vince, I can't pronounce his last name, Colangelo, being gifted his channel, we think there might be an opportunity to see if some of Dan's audience wants to come over and check out Strictly News. That's all we're going to be talking about here. And we welcome all newcomers. And you guys, I think you're going to find a community that you're going to embrace, that is going to embrace you, and we'd love to have you. So what we have going on today, we've got 12:30 with General Michael Flynn. Then we're going to jump to the press conference with Caroline Leavitt, scheduled at 1 p.m. In addition to all that, happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you who are Irish, Scottish, anybody who celebrates, other than the drinking part, St. Patrick's Day. I'm doing my part. I got a green shirt on. Although it might be a Notre Dame shirt, but it's still green. Notre Dame fighting Irish, same thing. So welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Let's get into this right away because we got something.
Breaking news into the Fanfare news feed.
Joe Biden got us into a real mess with Russia and everything else he did, frankly, but he didn't know about it, and he, generally speaking, signed it with auto pen. So how would he know? That auto pen is a big deal. I don't know. You know, they're having who's doing this? So when my people come up, Will and all of the people, Steve, they come up and, sir, this is an executive order. They explain it to me, and 90% of the time I sign it. 99% of the time I say do it. But they come up and I sign it. But you don't use auto pen. It's number one, it's disrespectful to the office. Number two, maybe it's not even valid because. Who's getting him to sign? He had no idea what the hell he was doing. If he did, all of these bad things wouldn't be happening right now.
A few moments later.
We have thousands of murderers that Biden and his incompetence, first of all, he's grossly incompetent, but that Biden and his people and his probably auto pen, it looked like we had an auto pen for a president, and we would have been better off than we had probably. But it looks to me like, that's a big subject. I'm sure you won't ask about that, but the whole subject of auto pen, did he know what he was doing? Did he authorize it? Or is this somebody in an office, maybe a radical left lunatic, just signing whatever that person was? That's not what it's all about. I never use it. I mean, we may use it as an example to send some young person a letter. It's nice, we get thousands and thousands of letters and letters of support for young people, for people that aren't feeling well, etc. But to sign pardons and all of the things that he signed with an auto pen is disgraceful.
Okay, in case you have not seen it as of yet, President Trump was flying back from Mar-a-Lago late last night, and while he was there, he dropped an epic bombshell, a huge bombshell that I'm sure caused a lot of people some serious consternation and constipation overnight. Let's look at exactly what he wrote and what he had posted so you guys can see it for yourself. If you haven't had a chance to read this, it is absolutely stunning. Let me pull it up here real quick so you can see it. Here we go. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. You're done. It's over. We're not playing this anymore. Because of the fact that they were done by AutoPen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during the 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. Can you imagine that? Can you even fathom that took place? Now, do I know whether he can? You definitely can't undo a pardon by a post on True Social, and you can't undo a pardon by a tweet. So it's going to be interesting what the next course of action will actually be. Is it going to be executive order? Is it going to be Pam Bondi saying here's some illegal activity? I'm not really sure. Let me just click this button because I want to make sure you guys can comment. But something's coming. Something big is definitely coming. And right now, you know for a fact, they will fight it in court, wherever they have to go to fight this. It's going to be monumental in scope. So I wanted to tee that up before today's show began. Because obviously, Caroline Leavitt probably going to get in her first or second question something about that. About these pardons being tossed out by President Trump. So I'm going to set you a stage for what's going to happen today. There's going to be two things that are going to start off this press conference at 1 o'clock. That'll be one. And the other big one will be the media, their heads exploding because they feel at this point that President Trump ignored an order. That he shipped these Tres de Leches guys off to El Salvador without, ignoring the judge's order. And Caroline Leavitt has been very, very forthcoming about that. Hey, it happened before the order came out or something. So expect to hear some questions today where they are really trying to pin her in a box. They're going to try and do the work of the court for them. They're going to try and pin her down to what time did the order come out? What time did the people get on the planes? Who told them to get on the planes? What time did they land? And they're going to try and chart whether they were indeed in international airspace. All of this is trying to be a setup to be a gotcha in terms of what President Trump and how Stephen Miller coordinated all this. Nonetheless, 250-something criminals got deported, and they're freaking out. You see, even if this thing turns out to be, something where they try to finagle it, the optics alone are going to further destroy the Democrat Party. You are arguing. You are complaining. You're whining. You're stomping your feet and throwing temper tantrums because the President of the United States deported known criminals. Let that sink in. You as you watched yesterday's video, you already know that the Democrats are in their lowest position, basically in history since CNN and MSNBC had been charting, the ratings. They're at 29% and falling. And you want to go on television and make a big deal about this? You want to be the people that got to go out there and tell Americans, hey, yeah, I understand that, these people were criminals, but they belong here. They had rights too. They're people. Yeah, good luck with that. I challenge you to do that. I encourage you to do that. I can't wait till you go out and ask her questions and show America that you're sticking up for gangs of criminals. And that you demand that they stay in the United States. I welcome that. I hope they ask 25 questions about Tres Leches being deported. Please do us all a favor and do that. It'll make my job and a lot of other people's job really easy. Man, could they be that stupid? Could they be that dumb to actually go out there and support criminals? Yeah, they can be that dumb. You expect it. Expect that at 1 o'clock. In addition, in regards to all this stuff about, the pardons. Ann Vandersteel, who's been a guest on the show, she pointed out something very interesting. Unreal. Hunter Biden walks free with a personal pardon from Sleepy Joe, but Millie, Fauci, James, and Valerie Biden, the J6 committee, even police officers got auto pen pardons that could be potentially rolled back. Imagine the irony. Hunter skates while the rest could face treason charges, punishable by death. So many of you are probably trying to say right now, Barry, what in the hell are you talking about? Well, you know all those auto pen pardons that he gave all those people, that somebody gave all these people, that somehow they ended up getting in their hands? Well, if President Biden didn't sign them and they void all of those, guess which one isn't going to get voided? Yep, Hunter's. Hunter Biden, the pardon he got, was actually signed by Joe in person. So now that is going to lead to a huge, huge confrontation. Why did Joe take the time, understanding that he was saving his son? Why did he do all that? Yet use the auto pen to sign the other ones. And where was he when the auto pen happened? Well, there's a few people who have matched up calendars and found out he was in the Virgin Islands while this thing was printed in Washington, D.C. This is going to be the second big bomb that they ask about today, which, again, when you start talking about things, you're putting a microscope on it. You are actually doing a, as they say, the Streisand effect. So both of these things could end up blowing up in their faces, and I'm here for it. I can't wait. Something else in terms of blowing up in people's faces, check this out. And where is it? Where is it? Okay, hold on. Why is this not moving?
So Donald Trump, when we complain about the cost of eggs, you tell us to shut up. But the reason we are complaining is because you promised you would bring down the cost on day one. And bro, it's like day 50.
I will tell you what is smart. When I took it over, eggs were through the roof, and now eggs are down 35% over a short period of time. And other things, fuel, gasoline, energy is down, way down. Oil is down to $65 a barrel. It was $82 a barrel. Then when energy comes down, pricing is going to come down. Prices for groceries, etc., are going to come down. So, yeah, I think we're setting a good table.
Finally, there is some good news. These are staples in all of our fridges. A lot of people love eggs. Many of us have them. And finally, I have some good news for you. The USDA says wholesale egg prices dropped for the third straight week, and it's a pretty big drop. The average wholesale price nationwide fell to $4.15 per dozen. So let's put that in perspective. That is down about $2.70 in just 1 week. Prices were over $8 at the end of last month. So part of the reason for the steep drop is people were put off by those high prices. So demand is lower. The other reasons, experts say, are because bird flu outbreaks have decreased. And get this, Easter is really late this year, so demand isn't that high right now. However, USDA also says declines haven't been reflected at store shelves yet, so you still may see those higher prices. But experts say consumers should start to see those prices drop by the time Easter finally rolls around, just in time to dye those Easter eggs.
Just in the nick of time, huh? So you got another issue. They've been lying about the eggs. Barry, what do you mean lying? Well, here's a chart. You wonder why you don't see the crazy liberals talking about the price of eggs anymore. Well, the average price of eggs on February 14th, this is nationally, results where you are may vary. On February 14th, they were $7.74. Then they crested on February 21st at $8.15. I can't even imagine paying that much for eggs. February 28th, $8.05. And then the precipitous drop, nearly half, nearly 50% cheaper than February 28th. 50%. How is this possible? Well, it seems it's possible because we got a new president. That seems to be the only reason why things are happening this way. He knows what he's doing. The other guy intentionally or didn't know what the hell he was doing. Intentionally didn't know, or he really, truly didn't know what he was doing, or the people around him had no clue what they were doing. These are things that people can actually see. They can see the contrast. They can see specifically what's going on and everything else. You can't lie about this. It's something people walk into their grocery stores and they can see what's happening. How do you explain that away? You can't. You can't possibly explain that away. All you have to do is lie, I guess, or ignore it, which is what I think they're doing. I mentioned what Caroline Leavitt had said about the court order. And I'm saying this right now because she's going to be coming on at 1. We're going to try, hopefully General Flynn can connect and get in here at 12:30. But I want you to go through and listen to how the media is phrasing things versus what Caroline Leavitt said. So let's take a look at this. This is what the media said. The White House says, so he's actually saying that the White House made a statement that it ignored the court order to turn around 2 plane loads of alleged Venezuelan gang members. Don't want to hurt those Venezuelan gang members' feelings, so we have to say alleged. Because the flights were over international waters, and therefore the ruling didn't apply. And it says 2 senior officials told Mark Caputo. Where Caroline Leavitt came back and said the administration did not refuse to comply with the court order. The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after the TDA aliens had already been removed from U.S. territory. So expect to see this today. They're going to try their best and nail down something. They're going to try their best to see if they can get her a gotcha so they can fill in this timeline. It's pretty devious what they're going to do. The written order and the administration's actions do not conflict. Moreover, the Supreme Court has repeatedly made it clear federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs, nor should they. His authorities under the Aliens Enemies Act and his core Article 2 powers to remove foreign alien terrorists from U.S. soil and repel a declared invasion. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrying foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil. So what you're going to see today, I would also predict, putting on my Nostradamus hat here, I think that there's going to be a definitive line. There's going to be 2 things you're going to hear. I think I should ask General Flynn this as well. Who declares that we are in wartime? Who declares that the definition of an enemy? And if that's the case, then these judges' orders are nothing more than advisory. If you have no bearing over, a wartime combatant, if you have no bearing in terms of how we decide how we're going to deal with our enemies and how or who declares we are in wartime, those are 3 very, very important distinctions. It's definitely not the media. Media can't say alleged Venezuelan gang enemies. That's something the president has designated. I'm designating these people terrorists, period. You can't undo a terrorist designation. You can't sue your way into not being an enemy. So I'd love to see how they're going to manage this boondoggle that the press is trying to put people in. I think it's going to get reduced to something that close, and that's where Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and even Dan Bongino on the enforcement arm of everything have to deal with this. In addition, here's something really important. I have great trust in the founders of this country. I trust that they wrote something. They didn't expect cheating. They didn't expect some of the things we've gone on. But when they wrote the law and said that the president could do this, and this, Article 2, Article 3, notice there was nothing in that clause. There was nothing in those articles to be undone. And there's nothing in there in terms of enforcement. Barry, where the hell are you going with this? Well, think about it this way. If a court, a lower court, a district court, could enforce a contempt order or contempt violation against the President of the United States, and then make the President's orders null and void, don't you think they would have said that in the Constitution? Don't you think that would have spelled out? You think one day, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison all just went, we'll do it tomorrow. We got time. No, they would have written it in there. Sometime in there, they would have said, hey, listen, these lower courts, a court in D.C., can also override the president. Nope, it didn't say that. There's nothing in it that says you can override who declares war, who declares an enemy, who declares a terrorist. It's a wartime decision. Define war. Well, Congress declares war. That's not what it says. It didn't say we're declaring war. It didn't say, well, we've declared war. We're in a wartime situation. Let me ask you a question. Are there wars going on around the world? Do you think that at this point our defenses are a little bit heightened? It's wartime. And of course, don't take my word for it. I'm putting my neck out there, but I'm pretty sure General Flynn may indeed agree with that. How do you define wartime? Not declaration of war doesn't mean we are in a war, but we are definitely in wartime. And then you could say, well, define a war. See, that's a whole nother definition. Do muskets have to be flying? Do we have to be shooting? What exactly has to be going on for there to be a war? Well, we're all about to find out. I'm pretty sure we're all about to find that out. If you read the letter of the law, it's pretty simple. It's very simple. So Caroline, what she's saying is, no, he did what he's supposed to do under a wartime act. I'm seeing General Flynn's people trying to log in, so hopefully everything could be okay here. The President of the United States is the chief law enforcement of the executive power, which gives him title Commander-in-Chief. Yeah, it doesn't say we have to, let's go talk to a lower district judge and have them define what wartime is. So I don't think he's ignoring it. I don't think it was anything other than a, hey, recommendation. You should do this. That's how I feel. I don't think you have any right, or any standing, as the courts like to say, to determine all the stuff that just happened. Let's see here. President meeting Conor McGregor. Yep, I saw that. Why is that? Let's see here. Would like to recommend a docu-movie called Freedom to Fascism by Aaron Russo, who is now passed and deserves a spot in the memory of Americans. Okay. Yes, an auto. Okay, I should go back and define that. Some people are asking, what the heck is an auto pen, and what do we mean by that? Well, an auto pen is simply a stamp. Somebody has taken his pen, whether it's an actual stamp or a machine that whatever it is, something is manufacturing, something is producing the president's handwriting. So that's exactly what that is. I'm still checking to see he's not logged in yet. All right. If mass hordes of people are illegally crossing your border, it's an invasion. Yeah, but who determines that? Who has the say as to what that really is? Well, obviously the commander-in-chief, not some district court judge in Washington, D.C. It's like a DocuSign. Yes, it is like a DocuSign. Why is it never a Republican judge saying these nonsense? Because they judge shop, meaning they go specifically to the judge that they think is going to give them the opinion that they can then run to the media with and put it out there and say, here's what the judge says. The judge says Trump can't do that. Who the hell is this judge? Here's something else. As I mentioned, in terms of enforcement, and I've said this a few times, and finally I see other people starting to catch on to this. If you want to enforce this, who are you going to call? And I don't mean that facetiously. I'm saying at this point, there's a contempt order. Trump said, screw you. He's flying these people out of here. Too bad. All right. What are you going to do about it? It sounds very flippant, but it's true. At this point, the Democrats are in such a bind. You want to make a stink about this? Do you seriously want to make a stink to that level about the President of the United States deporting illegal gang members? Because all you're going to have to do is call the U.S. Marshal. I'm sorry, Pam said no. Let me call the FBI. Cash said no. Who do I call? Nothing. And there's a reason why you have no one to call, because that's not written in the Constitution. It does not say, if the president doesn't listen to you, just do this. So here's question that, again, may be postured today that you may be thinking, well, if Trump does this, couldn't Democrats presidents do it should they be lucky enough to get back in office? And the answer to that question is, yeah, it's possible they could do it. That's why you got to make sure we understand what's going on and how to button this thing up. I think if a district court judge gave stupid orders about Trump, it shouldn't be in place. No more partisan BS. Follow the damn law. And that's where we need to get to. I see General Flynn is in here. Let me see if I can get him on, and we can talk about some of this stuff. And hold on. Let me see if I can. I think he's got a level. General Flynn, can you hear me? Testing. I can't hear you. Is your mic on? Nope. No sound. No sound coming from your end. Still no sound. I think your microphone is, the level may be too low. I'm not hearing anything come from there. I'm trying to turn it off, turn it back on. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yep, perfect.
That camera's going to have to move a little bit. Yeah. Do I look like I'm off center?
Yeah, you're off to your right.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I could. No, I was going to see if I could crop it, but if I try to crop it, then it may throw you off. I'll go.
No, that's all right.
Oh, there you are.
Don't move the camera. Don't move the camera. I can. I got it.
There you are. Perfect.
Okay. All right. That's good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Let's rock. You ready?
Yep. Let's go.
I think this is a man who needs no introduction whatsoever, but in case you do, this is General Michael Flynn. General Michael Flynn, thank you very, very much for taking the time on obviously a busy day. I'm going to get right to it so we don't waste any of your time, sir. So with everything that's going on, we got a couple questions which I think we're going to hear during the press conference. What's your opinion on whether or not President Trump either had or didn't have the authority to fly these Venezuelan hoods out of our country?
I mean, 100%, without a doubt, President Trump has the authority to do exactly what he is doing. These judges are out of control, and something's going to have to be done. I mean, I think that there's various constitutional issues that have been raised by these activist judges. And I'm talking about some of these judges are not activists; they're anti-American. But the President of the United States of America has 100% authority to do exactly what he's doing. This is not going to be overruled by the Supreme Court, like the executive authority of the President of the United States. So, that you can take to the bank. And I will tell you, the other thing that the President has is he's got national emergency, not just national security responsibilities, but he has national emergency authorities, many of which national emergencies, and I've written a lot about this over the years, but particularly in the last year, the President of the United States has the ability to declare a national emergency for various domestic issues, right? Mm-hmm. And these are, and I wouldn't say, in fact, I used the wrong word. He has the ability and the authority to impose a national emergency for national emergencies that have already been signed off on by presidents over decades. Okay. So there's these things called national emergencies. And there's I think it's about 43 of them. And about a third of them are for overseas type issues like, nuclear war or, in the event of a nuclear attack. I mean, there's a national emergency, right? As an example. Or like a canal or a commercial lane is shut down. Like President Trump just took military action against the Houthi rebels in Yemen because of the critical waterway of what's called Bandar Abbas, the southern end of the Red Sea. We have not been able to transit there. I mean, it's been months that anybody's been able to transit commercial vessels through there because of the missiles and the threat imposed by the Houthis. So the president used his authority to be able to go and severely punish the Houthi rebels for doing that. I mean, they basically, the Houthis were doing that for the past year of the Biden administration, And the Biden administration, instead of doing anything about it, they took the Houthis off of the terrorist watch list. I mean, they basically said, no, we're not going to designate them as terrorists anymore. So back to your question, Barry, the president has the authority because we are in the midst of a domestic national emergency right now with these groups. And the Tren de Agua,
Right.
they're one. Now, we've only seen a couple hundred. Everybody's seen the videos coming out of El Salvador with Bukele doing such a great job. But those are only a couple of hundred.
Right.
We know of close to 5,000 of these thugs are in our country. So we are in a state of sort of, in certainly a state of physical siege in some places. And that siege is being supported by leftist mayors and leftist governors. I mean, Barry, we are still in the middle of a I would just call it a bit of a soft coup, although it has hardened up quite a bit because of the last 4 years of allowing in these criminals, these terrorists, and these staggering numbers of illegals into our country. So back to your question, because you got me on a little bit of a roll here, Barry.
That's okay. That's fine. That's fine.
And I'm going to be posting some of this probably a little bit later today, but I've written about national emergencies, and I've written about the types of national emergencies that the president of any president has that are already in place. So it's not a matter of Trump writing another executive order or declaring something new. These are things that already exist. And about a third of these national emergencies, they actually go back to the 1950s in some cases, but about a third of these are domestic related.
Okay.
For example, if there is a huge natural disaster, right, like we saw with Helene in North Carolina, or the fires out in California, or the fires out in Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii, right? I mean, those are national emergencies that require the federal government to step in. Under Biden, they failed, totally miserably failed. And they did not use or leverage those abilities because with a national emergency comes federal funding, that only the president of the United States can authorize. So that would be another example of a national emergency. These tornadoes that we just experienced again in the middle of the country. I think the numbers, forgive me, but I think the numbers like high 30s. It's 36 or 38 people that were killed, sadly, tragically. Our hearts go out to them. So that's another example. But this threat that was imposed on us by the previous administration. Tren de Agua did not impose this threat.
Right.
They were allowed to come into this country because of the failures of the Biden administration and, frankly, the failures of the left. So the president has the full authority. And the other thing I want people to do, Barry, is I want them to go back and read the oath of office for the president of the United States of America. Okay? People need to go back and read the oath of office that only the president takes. He's the only one that takes it. I've taken the oath of office plenty of times to protect and defend the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, bear true faith, allegiance to the same, all that stuff, right? The president of the United States, for the presidency, they add one word, and they add the word preserve. Actually, it's a phrase, preserve the Constitution. The word preserve is only given to the president of the United States for his constitutional oath of office. People need to read that. It's short, probably take, a minute and a half to read it, if that.
Okay.
And people need to read that because that means a lot. It means that the president of the United States has the responsibility to preserve the country, right? To preserve the Constitution. All I have is, and as a military guy or as serving in a federal office, I have a responsibility to defend and protect based on what the president of the United States directs me, particularly in the executive branch of government. The president of the United States has a responsibility to preserve this country. And that is super, super important. And it's constitutional. And so it's longer than you wanted on your great question. But people need to understand this stuff. I mean, this is an education in who we are as America, right?
Right. So I got another question for you. It kind of dovetails off of what you just said. He's also invoking the Aliens Invasion Act, or what it is, and it's based upon wartime. And one of the questions I've had, and I've talked to other people, is it may take an act of Congress to declare war, which we are, would be involved in. But who defines, and how would you define wartime? I mean, there's wars happening all around the world. So are we in a wartime situation?
Yes. So the answer to that question, the latter question, is: are we in a wartime situation? Yes. And just this year alone, never mind the last four, but just actually, and I won't say 2025 because the stats aren't in it. So I'm actually thinking 2024. 2024, we've had close to 200,000, I say, killed in action on the streets of America by fentanyl. Okay? So let's just say it's 100,000. That's more than the last 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq combined, right? So we have killed in action on the streets. Let's just use the number 100,000, just so I'm not overstating it, because I know it's more than 100, but let's just say 100,000. So just this past year alone, never mind 2021, 2022, 2023. So 100,000 killed in action on the streets of America by fentanyl, which is imposed by, it's created by China and other countries now in Asia, but principally by China. They then bring it in through Canada, through their alliance, their alliance network through Canada, which is really these drug cartels. So they bring it in through Canada and Mexico, right? Mexico was the principal route of entry, but then all of a sudden Canada started to pick up, and picked up big time over the last year and a half. So 100,000 killed in action just this past year. And then you have to add in the number that were wounded in action, because I'm using military terms: killed in action and wounded in action. Wounded are those people that were debilitated but not killed by fentanyl. All right? And that includes, not only physically injured because they weren't killed by it, but they were injured by it, and they had to, and they're physically injured, maybe in some cases for the rest of their lives. Certainly law enforcement and first responders who have to go clean this stuff up. But others that are affected, others that are wounded by this fentanyl, by this weapon system, this narcotic that is a weapon system that the Chinese have imposed on our country. So the others that are wounded are the families and the family members that are part of, I was at the Department of Justice the other day with a lovely young woman whose son was killed by fentanyl, thinking he was taking a Percocet, and he ended up taking a fentanyl, and he died, right? And she actually is a great great young lady. She spoke at the Republican National Convention last summer.
Yeah, I remember her.
And so that's an example, a personal example of for her, in her case, where it was killed in action. So we are in a state of war. We're in a state of war. That's part of it. There is another part, and I just talked a little bit about it, with the domestic challenges that this president, who was elected in a huge historic way, is having with elements within the left. When I say the left, I don't use the word Democrat or the phrase Democrat Party anymore, Barry, because they're not. It's been taken over by a Marxist left, and it's Marxism with American characteristics, of course, but Marxism, and these are Marxists. They're not Democrat activists. These are Marxists, and they are aligned with radical Islamists, and that's what we're facing in this country today. Like it or not, folks, live with me for the decades of experience that I got, but live with me for a couple of weeks, and you'll see, you'll become believers overnight as to what we're facing, because it's really a dangerous time. And that's why when people are going to go, well, they only do that during time of war, and Congress has to declare war. Well, then you know what, Congress, get off your dead end, your rear ends, and do what you think is right. But Congress has been part of the problem. The establishment, the Rhino, the Uniparty, right? They're part of the problem. There's some good ones up there, but not enough. Definitely not enough. And so as we roll through this coup, this ongoing coup that started in 2015, and it went, I mean, went, real hard on, 2016, 2017, and they haven't let up, and they're not this time around. They're not being. Well, actually, I would take that back a little bit. They're being a little bit more subtle in how they do it versus how they did it in the 2016, 2017 timeframe. But the subtlety is in forms of use of weapons like lawfare, right? Over 100 actions right now, over 100 lawsuits against this current administration. Instead of just saying, oh, okay. So people think, these idiots think that it's okay to keep these guys in our country committing crimes, raping, brutally murdering, brutally raping boys and girls, sex trafficking children, slave trafficking children. I mean, that's what we're seeing. I mean, these are conditions of war, and I'm okay with what President Trump has done. And like I said, he has the full authority to do what he's doing. And thank God we have people like him. And thank God we actually have a president like Bukele down in El Salvador, which, he's like saying, bring him on. But now his prison down there, I think they can only take like 40,000. That's not big enough. So we're going to have to find other places because we're talking about.
Wow.
I'll give you one other example that I'll just break some news on your show, right? Because I just worked this over the last probably 3 days. Taliban and ISIS and Al Qaeda, as they have sort of formed together, as they have converged together, they control Afghanistan. Well, we've been paying whatever it is, like some crazy number, like $40 million a week to Afghanistan. Yes. A week. So that has been stopped, I believe, and don't hold me to that, but I believe that's been stopped. I did some digging and looked at passport requests from Afghanistan over the last 4 years, right? Visa requests, the number of passports that were given to people that were known terrorists, right? Or that were designated as such. It's close to 24,000 coming out of just Afghanistan that we know that we're giving documents to come into this country. Okay, wow. This is like whoever cut that deal ought to be brought in for investigation. And if they're found to be, that they were taking money off the top just to give that back, something is not right with that. So there's 24,000. Those are Afghans. Okay, wow. Those are Afghans. Never mind these Venezuelans. And I told you the number there is about 5,000.
Right.
Okay, the Bukele thing is, I think it was 200. So we're looking at large scale numbers that we have in our country that are dangerous, that are dangerous human beings in this country. And the Democrat Party, the left, Marxist left in this country, they want these people to stay here. This is out of control, Barry. So I'm on. You got me on a roll, buddy.
No, I love it. I mean, it's someone with your knowledge. I just love to just dig a little bit and see what you're thinking. So in that regard, Pam Bondi, fresh on the job. Kash Patel, fresh on the job. Dan Bongino starts today. And you mentioned the trafficking and some of that stuff. Many of us, me included, were waiting for the Epstein files to drop, and we all were under the impression that was a big deal. But what we're seeing now, in my estimation, are things of a much higher priority because of what these judges are doing. And where does that fall in your estimation in terms of what Trump and Bondi and Patel have to work on first, and then how do you think these different crimes and investigations need to play out?
Yeah, and that's a great question, actually, and it's a really smart question because I see a lot of stuff on the internet, social media, and everybody's bitching and griping and complaining, right? I mean, everybody, and I'm not going to say that I don't either. I do, but your question is really smart because you're asking about where should the priorities be, right? And back to what I said about the president, having a responsibility to preserve the Constitution. The main priority for the president of the United States, Barry, is the safety and security of the American people. Safety and security of the American people, no doubt. So, as he's juggling things, and let me take a step back. So, if Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and all these other cabinet members. If they had their full teams in place, we might be able to juggle a couple of, crystal balls and not drop any of them, right? We might be able to juggle more than 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, but they don't have their teams in place. We're only 2 months into this, right? We're 2 months into this, and there's a lot of people that still need to be hired. Hell, we still have ambassador positions overseas in really critical places, and they're not filled. They're still filled by Obama people.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's probably true too.
Yeah.
But Biden people, they're still filled by the the ambassadors were brought home, but the diplomats who were the number 2s there, they're all from the Biden administration. So the most important thing right now is from the president's perspective, is safety and security of the American people. And so it makes sense for the president to say, okay, guys and gals, Tom Homan is my pointy end of the spear. Secretary Noem, DHS, Secretary Hegseth, DOD, Secretary Rubio, Secretary of State. You guys are going to pile on that problem. We've got to get these criminal terrorist thugs out of our country because they are damaging our country. They're basically killing people. Hey, right. And we've got to limit the flow, and we have to stop the flow coming across our borders, plural. We have got to reduce the amount of fentanyl. They just captured another batch of fentanyl the other day, and when I was over at DOJ, they made an example of it. And I think if I remember right, Pam Bondi said that the amount that they captured could kill, like undiluted, could kill like 100 million people.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nuts. So safety and security. The second thing on the Epstein files, because I was upset about it too, right? I mean, the president said, do it. Kennedy files, let's get them out there. Unredacted, let's get them out there, right? I'm a big, anti-child trafficking, anti-sex, child sex trafficking advocate. We've got to stop this madness. We can't, and it's not just, whatever guy on the street. These are elites that are involved in this. P. Diddy, Epstein. I mean, they're not working with just, excuse my Irish, Joe shit the rag on St. Patty's Day. Joe shit the rag on the corner of Pete and Repeat, right? Right. These are people that are up in the higher echelons of our government, higher echelons of other institutions like academia, Hollywood, the media that are involved in these things, right? And other governments. They have to be exposed. But right this second, do they represent a clear and present danger to the United States of America or to human beings on the United States? Some could argue with me that they do, and because they might still be involved in it. But their day is going to come. I do believe, until Pam Bondi gets more of her team in place. I mean, you mentioned Dan Bongino is a great friend, great guy. He starts work today. Yeah. You've got to figure out, you got to figure out where's my, do I have an office, what phone? You got to get issued all this badges. I mean, government doesn't move that fast. That's why we, the people, we have to keep the pressure on. We got to keep the pressure on, Barry. Your show, is a great show. You have a great audience. You know what your audience wants. Your audience needs to keep the pressure on. Don't stop doing what you're doing, because we got to raise it up. We got to raise our voices up, right? Digital soldiers. I'm big on that, and citizen journalism. There's going to be a press conference today. I think the press conference is going to be about Ireland a little bit, and it should be because we're looking at I call it the Ottoman Empire 2.0, and some of that empire is right here in the United States of America. And this is not an attack on all Muslims, okay? I've written a book, Field of Fight: How to Win the War Against Radical Islam and Its Allies. It's a bestseller. I wrote it back in 2016. So these are not, and I've fought for 5 years of direct combat operations against principally, and fundamentally, the radicalized Islamists that are on, around the world because of the attacks on 9/11 principally. But so this is not about going against all Muslims. This is going against a part of the Muslim community that is radicalized, and they have subjugated their own societies. The people that kill Muslims the most are themselves. It's not, honestly. So, but this is what's going to be talked about, I think, today, is because Ireland and England, right, the United Kingdom, these and frankly, you can take it all the way over into mainland Europe. They are under incredible levels of threat because they have allowed their globalist ideas and ideology, this globalist shift that these people want to basically allow this wide open borders, free flow of humanity. And guess what? The abundance of people that are coming out of Muslim countries, which is about the northern half of Africa, so down, what's called the Sahel and south of the Sahel, all the way up to places like Alexandria, Egypt, Tripoli, Libya, Tunis, Tunisia, Algeria, all the way over to Morocco. They're bustling with people, and they're moving into Europe, and they've been for well over a decade, almost 20 years now, almost 20 years. Some of that was caused by wars in Iraq, for sure, and so I would, from an analysis perspective, can somebody say, well, the goddamn United States of America, if they didn't attack Iraq, and to a degree, I could probably argue that. In fact, I would probably be one of the best proponents of that side of the argument, because I have said that was one of the biggest strategic mistakes that we made this century so far, was attacking Iraq, because it was unnecessary when we were already battling over in Afghanistan. But all that's looking in the past. What we face right now, what Europe faces, is an Ottoman Empire 2.0, no doubt. Mm-hmm. We have them on our streets right here. We've seen them with this Palestinian nonsense in college campuses. And you got to wonder, okay, so I'm looking at a guy the other day on one of these protests. He looked like he was about my age. He was a white dude. And he's got a mask on, but his mask came down. He's got a sign. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what the heck is this guy doing? Right? What is he? This guy got? So he's not a Muslim, and if he is, he didn't appear to be. And I'm not talking about in his facial tone, right? He didn't sound to me like he was preaching, Islam. Right. It sounded like he was preaching activism, and he was preaching anti-Americanism and hatred and spewing it constantly. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, because I'm looking around at these other people in masks. They're all in black. They got backpacks. They got these great big signs. You got to say to yourself, okay, so when they show up to here, when they show up to like some new place, who's actually out there painting the signs that they're holding up? Who's getting this stuff ready? Because it seems like all of a sudden they show up and shit, they got everything ready, right? So somebody's behind this, right? There's large sums of money behind this, and I do believe, I do believe that, one of the names of the groups is called Arabella Advisors. Are you familiar with that name?
Yes.
Yeah. So Arabella Advisors is a George Soros created and funded organization. His son pretty much runs it, Alex. And then, if you look at their breakdown is very sophisticated. And it's billions and billions of dollars, principally to cause the United States of America to collapse on our own weight inside. Like Abraham Lincoln said in 1838, no nation, no country will take a drink from the Ohio or take a step on the Blue Ridge with a Bonaparte for a commander. Never. If America is to die, it will die by its own suicide. And we are in that process. We're in the midst of those times. And now he said that in 1838. Here we are in 2025, almost 200 years later, and we're facing these issues because we have been in a period of, I believe, moral decline, and for decades. We've lost sight of the family unit. We had 40 years of killing babies, and that's still going on, and we've just allowed ourselves to give up on. I use the phrase local action has a national impact, Barry. People have got to become citizens of this country once again and not turn it over to some elected political hack that all they're doing is filling their pockets with our money. Look at what Doge and Elon have found out.
I want you to hold that, because I'm going to ask Ashley if she get in touch with your people and get you back on. We're getting ready to jump to this press conference, but I have one last question, which I'm sure a lot of people want to know the answer to. Given what you've been through, the mud that they've dragged you through, and you went through it and you've come out stronger on the other end here, is there a seat somewhere in the Trump administration for you, or do you think you can make more stuff happen on the outside?
Yeah, I think I'm far more effective doing what I'm doing right here with you right now.
Okay.
And that's an influential position of some authority, referent authority that they call it, but because you get into the government and you get trapped.
Yeah.
You get trapped, and I know that, and so I know what we're up against. I know what we're facing. I know all the players in the Trump administration. I have great relationships with them, especially the president, and I think we'll be okay. But it's not going to be without a lot of sacrifice in the months ahead here. So anyway, Barry, thank you so much for having me on. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you and your audience.
Thank you.
And I'll get back on.
Invaluable knowledge you dropped upon us today. And I love when I talk to people and they give me homework. You told me to go look up the oath, which I will, and you mentioned the speech that Abraham Lincoln gave in 1835.
It's called the Lyceum. It's called the Lyceum speech. Lyceum. Lyceum. Lyceum speech. And look up the presidential oath of office for President of the United States.
Love it. Thank you very, very, very much for your time. Got to have you back. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. God bless. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Oh, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right, everybody. No reason to tell you how to get a hold of him. If you're on X, you know how to get a hold of General Michael Flynn. I thank him for his time. I'm going to hit to a Lear Capital spot here really quick. Actually, no, I'm going to go to... I'm going to go to Lear Capital real quick because I got to get set up for the press conference at 1:30. So again, I did find my gold piece. So my grandson didn't take it. Here's my gold piece and my silver piece. Actually going to have to get a couple more of those because I'm going to get one for each of them, one gold piece and one silver piece for each of them, and as they start building their own portfolio. So you guys may want to do the same. I'll be right back. Let me get set up for the press conference. As you know, President Trump has assembled the Avengers to make America great again. And of course, we're all excited and ready to see them get to work. But with everything we're seeing right now, don't take your eye off the ball. Things could get much worse before they get better. With the possibility of World War III still looming, and with the Democrats doing everything they can to impede Trump, you still need to keep your guard up and your money protected. Oh, and our national debt is still massively increasing. Don't get me wrong, I have high hopes for Trump's America, but I also have a family to look out for. You see, Trump and the Avengers have quite the uphill battle ahead. That's why I'm making sure I'm protected, and I'm recommending that you do the same. One way to be protected is by diversifying your portfolio. That's why on this channel I've been happy to partner with Lear Capital. As you know, I've been involved in real estate for quite some time, and although I dabbled in gold and silver, Kevin and his staff at Lear have helped to educate me even further, especially in regards to silver. Give Lear a call today and they'll show you how easy it is to move some of your savings or your retirement account into gold and silver. Gold and silver have been proven to hold value and protect wealth for the long term. Call Lear today at 800-601-5430 or go to learberry.com to get your free gold and silver wealth protection guides. There's no obligation, just free information. Many of you have seen my interviews with Lear founder Kevin Demerit, and I can tell you this company is solid and likes to educate their customers. Just so you know, Lear has over 27 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and over $3 billion in trusted transactions, and is the only company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase. You don't pay unless you're 100% satisfied. So call 800-601-5430 or go to learberry.com. And when you call, don't forget to ask how you can get up to $15,000 in bonus gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. So if you'd like to take advantage of this opportunity, please call my friends at Lear Capital at 800-601-5430 and tell them Barry sent you. Well, we got the interview done, didn't miss anything with the press conference. I love it when I talk to people. I mean, absolutely love it when I talk to people who make me go look up stuff. Couple things he mentioned, which I will definitely go ahead and take a look at, is maybe as early as tonight, the actual oath of the President of the United States, and I'll compare that to different oaths that you take in office. I'll look at the office of the oaths for the cabinet. I'll look at oaths for judges and things of that nature, and let's compare them so we can see the delineation of the actual terms used in these oaths. I think that'll be fantastic to look at. Also, he mentioned looking at Abraham Lincoln's Lyceum speech, which never heard it before. That man, General Flynn, is a wealth of knowledge. Hats off to Ashley for getting that put together. If you notice, I was quiet most of the time because I was sucking it up myself. Just please, as a product of a military man myself, and having my father talk to me so much about what was going on in the military. By the way, I mentioned he was an immigrant from Jamaica who joined the army after he got his papers and everything. He actually became a citizen. So I grew up, as many of you did, probably in a military family. And being in a military family, those of you who were, you understand this man talking. Number one, shut up. Don't talk. I hate when I watch Hannity give interviews. And in his interviews, he talks over the people. Shut up. You got a man of authority who's got a ton of knowledge. Ask your question and then shut up. Let him answer. If he was done with his answer, he'll stop. Give you a chance to ask another question, but I am not going to interrupt a 4 or 5 star general when he's on a roll. We're going to let him roll. And I love it that he gave me homework, so we're going to answer that homework tonight. So as you heard, and I hope you now can take it and disseminate that information, Epstein and what's going on is definitely an issue. Maybe the mistake Pam Bondi did. Maybe that was the mistake by saying day one. But you have to understand, it's also campaign rhetoric. I don't think they had any idea. Well, no, that's wrong. They knew what was coming. They knew all these maybe not all these judges would be the way they are, but in any event, what we're seeing right now is a high, and I hate to even say it because these kids' lives are definitely a priority, but they can't get to these kids. And they can't get to the people moving these kids unless you start dismantling things from the top. So I'm sure what you don't see and what you don't hear about are the investigations happening behind the scenes. All the intelligence they're gathering, who's running this network, who's here, who's doing this. And so by the time, it actually boils up, then you see the arrest and then you see what's going on. And then, whatever they talk about today, they're probably going to talk about, General Flynn said, Ireland, which just came out of nowhere for most of us. And then President Trump is going to reiterate his overseas ban, which the media is going to label a Muslim ban. You saw over the weekend everything that happened. So there's going to be so much stuff happening that with a skeleton crew. So that's another thing none of the MAGA Confederates are talking about. Pam Bondi didn't do this. I'm like, wait a second. She's painting a whole house with 2 people. And they got to make sure they can find other people who can paint, who can do the edging, who knows how to walk the scaffolding. They got to find all the right people. Remember, this is Dan Bongino's first day. You don't even know where the water cooler is yet. Okay, I got to go over here. Okay, where are we eating lunch? I hope Pash Patel said there is no lunch. Bring a bag, bro. Bring a bag. We're going to be that busy. We ain't got time to order in. Just bring a bag. Let's do it. Get in the conference room and let's put everything together. Because if it is, as General Flynn said, and as we're seeing in terms of how fast things are moving, Trump's leaving no stone unturned. And you have to see that as well, that things are crazy. So if you see people complaining about we don't have the list, Pam Bondi's not doing anything, give them the digital slap upside the head, please. Seriously. You watched an operation yesterday. Just sit back and think, what happened yesterday? Well, an order was given by somebody. Someone in the Trump administration, get these people out of here. Get them out of here as quick as possible. We have a leaker. Somebody is leaking to the press what we're about to do. They are going to run to the court. The judge is going to give an order. The judge is going to try and stop us. We need to get moving. All this is happening, right? And Pam Bondi's involved. And Kash Patel, because they got to move the planes and get these people out of the country. But can you imagine what the phones were like in the last 24 to 48 hours? Meanwhile, maybe coincidentally, President Trump was down here at Mar-a-Lago. Probably coordinate everything from down here so that the eyes up there couldn't see what was happening. You don't think he was just on the golf course, do you? You don't think there was somebody following him around with a phone going, hey, sir, you want to take this call? Yeah, it's a go. Should we do it? Go. Green light. Run. Do whatever you need to do. And it happened. And so that was a priority. Let's get these initial couple hundred people out of here, and let's keep it going. So it looks like they're getting ready to walk out here. You know, they're just checking the screens and everything. As soon as that comes on, we'll get to it. I ignore those people complaining on X. At this point, I think they have to be after clicks. It doesn't make any sense. They're riling up people that no longer need to be riled up because these people have no idea what's going on. The Southern White House, yeah, absolutely. It's amazing what's going down here. General Flynn made it clear we're in a war. I'm sure someone else told you that. Just saying. You can see it. If anybody knows what a civil war or a coup looks like, it was that man. That man has been in the trenches since 2016, probably 15, when they started coming after him. If you guys are new and don't know the history of General Flynn, maybe it might be a good time for you to start digging in and go, hey, who's this General Flynn guy? Haven't heard about him. What was he all about? In case you don't know, let me be the first to tell you. He was probably the second person that they targeted in addition to Donald Trump back in 2016 and 2015. He was the guy, he was the point person that they had the hamstring that was attached to Trump back then. And the guy went through hell. They took his money, just tried to do everything to him, and he's still standing. Still standing. Oh my God, Bradley, so yes, you told us too. Oh, I'm sorry. Melissa, I really wasn't holding my breath on the list, but I'm glad we are getting these dangerous criminals out of our country. You also have to wonder how much of what President Trump is doing. Let me put it this way. If President Trump is understaffed as the president, as the administration, how understaffed are his opponents? What do you mean by that, Barry? Well, the dude is out there flooding the zone, just throwing as much stuff out there and making them choose what they're going to defend. Secondly, as he's doing it, he's giving them head fakes. We're going to go over here. Thirdly, and most importantly, he's become Wonder Man of sorts. I'm not going to say Wonder Woman. Wonder Man. Because what do you not hear? What do you not hear much of all? At all? You don't hear much of what RFK Jr. is doing. You don't hear much of what Tulsi Gabbard is doing. You don't hear much about what Kristi Noem is doing, except when Tom Homan's kicking someone's door in. You don't hear much of any of the people, what they're doing. He's sucking up all the oxygen, and he's sucking up all the oxygen because of the things he's doing, which is allowing these people back here to work pretty much unscathed. Trump, being in entertainment, understands media full well. There's only so many things you can cover. You only have so many things in the day that any news station can cover, even with X. And so by flooding the zone and having this and that and this and the other thing, he's keeping the news cycle moving so much that all they can do is complain and whine. Every minute that MSNBC is interviewing Jasmine Crockett is a minute they're not looking at what RFK Jr. is doing. Every minute they're sticking a microphone in AOC's face tells you they don't know what this guy's doing, and that gal, and this person. And so because he's so front and forward as a president, he's taking all the arrows. Bring it. What was one of his biggest campaign slogans? Come on, I'll wait. They're after you, but I'm in their way. And you probably thought he was just talking about you. But he could be after them, but I'm in their way. I'm going to take the arrows for all these people. Think about what he said. They want these people, but unfortunately they're going to have to go through me. And I'm going to keep them dancing. I'm going to go play some golf while I'm on the phone telling them to bomb the Houthis. And I'm telling them, yeah, ship out the guys in Tris the Lake Jays. And I'm doing all this stuff. And not one person over the weekend said, whoa, hey, what's RFK Jr. doing? I don't know. Anybody watching RFK Jr.? No? Why not? Why is nobody watching RFK Jr.? I don't know what just happened, but they all walked out getting ready to do the press conference, and then everybody just kind of disappeared. I don't know if they had a fire drill or something. Hey, look. I don't know if somebody called in a bomb threat or something, but now the camera's on one position, just there, and I had to check myself to make sure it was still running. And it's running, but nobody's happening. Let me check my other feed to make sure something crazy hasn't happened. No, same thing with RSBN. It's like everybody's wondering what's going on. Oh, here comes the lady. She's walking out right now. So let's go ahead and cut to her.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I see a lot of us are very festive in our green. Peter Ducey, I like it. First today, I want to address the devastating tornadoes and storms that have impacted many states throughout the South and the Midwest. As of this morning, more than 40 innocent lives have. President Trump ordered decisive military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. And local officials to restore affected communities and livelihoods.
That's not me.
Everyone impacted is in our prayers, and President Trump is fully prepared to assist state and local officials as they recover. Joe Biden's pathetic weakness invited these unacceptable attacks. But there's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Donald Trump. And the world is officially on notice. America has a commander-in-chief whose peace-through-strength approach is unwavering and should not be tested. As the president said, no terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing throughout the world. Houthi terrorists and their Iranian backers should not cross President Trump again, and the president has made that clear today. On another important matter, President Trump signed a proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by the foreign terrorist organization.
All right, I got it fixed. Hold on. Just got to turn it up.
Countless American lives. Thanks to the great work of the Department of State, these heinous monsters were extracted and removed to El Salvador, where they will no longer be able to pose any threats to the American public. Tren de Aragua is one of the most ruthless terrorist gangs in the world, and they are responsible for some of the most heinous crimes that have occurred in our nation's history in recent years, including the savage murders of beautiful Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungray. President Trump promised Laken and Jocelyn's families during his campaign that he would demand justice for their beautiful girls, and that's exactly what he did. As the president acknowledged during his inaugural address on January 20th, he pledged to invoke this act, and he has no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions. President Trump will continue his historic efforts to seal the border and prevent these illegal invaders from coming here in the first place. As the New York Times is acknowledged over the weekend, President Trump's policies are working. Here's how the Times summed it up. Illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border are down to their lowest level in decades. Once crowded migrant shelters are empty. Instead of heading north, people stranded in Mexico are starting to return home in bigger numbers. The border is almost unrecognizable from just a couple of years ago, when hundreds of thousands of people from around the world were crossing into the United States every month in scenes of chaos and upheaval. This is the Trump effect in action. And again, those are the words from the New York Times. We didn't need a border security bill. We just needed President Trump. All of these actions taken together are contributing to a wave of optimism about the direction of our great country. According to brand new polling from NBC News, more registered voters say the United States is heading in the right direction than at any point since early 2004. Americans support President Trump's common sense approach that's getting our country back on track in record time. Meanwhile, the president's critics can't say the same. That same new NBC poll also found that the Democrat Party has reached an all-time low in popularity. It turns out when you let your hatred of President Trump get in the way of doing what is best for America, the people reject you. Who would have thought? Joining us today in our new media seat is Kelly Meyer. She is a White House correspondent with News Nation. News Nation started in 2021 and is one of America's fastest growing cable news networks with a focus on news for all of America. It's part of a larger ecosystem, Nexstar, which is home to News Nation, the political website The Hill, the broadcast network The CW, and local Nexstar stations. With that, kick us off, please, Kelly.
Thank you, Caroline. What do you say to Americans who want safe streets but are concerned due process is being violated?
The president is using every lever of his executive authority and his constitutional authority within the bounds of the immigration laws of our country to ensure that our streets are safer for law-abiding American citizens. And this administration is focused on detaining, arresting, and deporting illegal criminal aliens. And as you saw this past weekend, the president used his authority under the Alien Enemies Act to deport foreign terrorists. Tren de Aragua is now a designated foreign terrorist organization. And as I said, there were nearly 200 Tren de Aragua members who were sent to El Salvador this weekend. Countless lives will be saved because of this action. And if you talk to the families, the Angel families, as I mentioned, Blake and Riley and Jocelyn Nungray, they understand the grave cost of life at the hands of these illegal terrorists. And the president is proud to deliver on that promise for them.
And just to follow up on that, this will be challenged later today in the courts. Does the president, does this allow him to defy the court order without having this the checks and balances and the separation of power?
No. In fact, this administration acted within the confines of the law, again, within the president's constitutional authority and under the authority granted to him under the Alien Enemies Act. We are quite confident in that, and we are wholly confident that we are going to win this case in court. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. If you guys can't send 200 Tren de Aragua terrorists at a time to El Salvador, where are you going to send them instead?
It's a very good question. You'd have to ask the courts and the people on the left who are trying to fight this administration for doing the business that this president sought out to do, which is to deport these foreign terrorists. And we're very grateful to President Bukele and to El Salvador for accepting these heinous monsters where they will face justice.
And if these guys are terrorists at war with the United States, is President Trump considering anything more lethal to address them than just sticking them on a plane somewhere else?
Well, it sounded like you had a little bit of curiosity in the premise of your question, so I want to address it. These are designated foreign terrorists. The president signed a proclamation on February 20th, 2025, designating TDA as a foreign terrorist organization that was in consultation with the Attorney General and the Secretary of Treasury. That was pursuant to 8 U.S. Code 1189. The president has the right to do that. And I think nobody would argue that Tren de Aragua should be designated a foreign terrorist organization. If you want to have that argument, I'm happy to do it. These are heinous monsters, rapists, murderers, kidnappers, sexual assaulters, predators who have no right to be in this country, and they must be held accountable.
And something different. There is now a member of the European Parliament from France who does not think the U.S. represents the values of the Statue of Liberty anymore. They want the Statue of Liberty back. So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country. Kelly.
Is the administration prepared to give the court what it wants in terms of the time of the flights that departed, that went to El Salvador, and some of those details that the judge is asking for in trying to determine the timing? Clearly, the 5 named individuals were not deported
That's
in
right.
compliance, but looking more broadly, wanting to know about the timing of flights and so forth, because the verbal order did say turn around the flights if there's an issue. So is the administration prepared to provide that information?
I'm prepared to provide it right now. All of the planes that were subject to the written order, the judge's written order, took off before the order was entered in the courtroom on Saturday. And the administration will, of course, be happily answering all of those questions that the judge poses in court later today.
And for people who have due process questions about making certain that there wasn't anyone who was swept up who did not meet the criteria that you laid out, is there a way for the administration to provide more detail about how that was determined, who the individuals were that met this deportation order?
Yes, I can assure the American people that Customs and Border Patrol and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security are sure about the identities of the individuals who were on these planes and the threat that they pose to our homeland. They take this incredibly seriously. They are putting their lives on the line to deport these designated terrorists from our country, and they should be trusted to do that. And that's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
Thanks, Caroline. Just to follow up on that then, so you're saying definitively that the administration can prove everyone that was put on those flights to El Salvador was either a member of Tren de Agua, MS-13, or some other entity?
We've already provided the breakdown in the effort of transparency about the 261 illegal aliens who were deported. 137 of those were deported under the Alien Enemies Act. 101 of those were Venezuelans removed via Title VIII, which, as you know, are just regular immigration proceedings. And 23 of them were MS-13 Salvadorian gang members. There were also 2 MS-13 ringleaders as part of that group of 23 who President Bukele particularly expressed his gratitude for their return so he can demand justice in his home country. Jennifer.
What criteria, though, other than, say, tattoos or maybe being in the wrong place at the wrong time, are they using to determine that someone is actually a member of one of these organizations?
Intelligence and the men and women on the ground in the interior of our country who are finally being allowed to do their jobs. Their hands were tied under the previous administration, and as I said, they take their jobs very seriously. They should be trusted and respected by the American public with this operation, and of course, as I said to Kelly, the administration will provide all details to the questions that the court poses. Jennifer.
One more follow-up on that. Can you say how much the U.S. is paying El Salvador to imprison these Venezuelans? And then a different question on Russia. I was wondering if you could give us an update on the ceasefire negotiations, and is there anything you can share on the list that Putin passed along to President Trump for the things he's requesting?
Sure. To your first question, it was approximately $6 million to El Salvador for the detention of these foreign terrorists. And I would point out that is pennies on the dollar in comparison to the cost of life and the cost it would impose on the American taxpayer to house these terrorists in maximum security prisons here in the United States of America. And I would echo the message of our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who expressed his gratitude to President Bukele and El Salvador's government for their cooperation in this deal. As for Russia, as you know, the president announced last night on Air Force One on his return from his very busy weekend in Florida that he will be speaking to President Putin tomorrow. I won't get ahead of those negotiations, but I can say we are on the 10th yard line of peace, and we've never been closer to a peace deal than we are in this moment. And the president, as you know, is determined to get one done. Sure, Caitlin.
I have 2 questions for you. One on the flights, but first on the president's post overnight, saying that that the pardons that were issued by President Biden preemptively to members of the January 6th committee, that they're now null and void. Have attorneys here at the White House told President Trump that he is the legal authority to undo a pardon simply because it was signed by auto pen, as he said?
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but we all know that to be true, as evidenced by his disastrous debate performance against President Trump during the campaign. I digress on that. But the president was raising the point that did the president even know about these pardons? Was his legal signature used without his consent or knowledge? And that's not just the president or me raising those questions, Caitlin. According to the New York Post, there are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the President of the United States autograph without his consent.
Biden is on the record talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden White House.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Okay,
Sean.
on the flights, so I have a question on the timeline of the flights. You keep talking about the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night about 7:26 p.m. But he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing. A verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were
Well,
in the air?
there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in court. Sean.
Hey, so on Friday, the president suggested at length that it should be illegal to criticize judges, but he has repeatedly criticized judges who rule against him, and Elon Musk is calling for impeachment of judges who have opposed the administration. So how are those two things not in conflict?
I have not heard the president talk about impeaching judges. I know you mentioned Mr. Musk's tweet, but I have not heard the president of the United States ask that. Mary.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about this video I saw this morning set to the tune of, I believe, Closing Time, about deportations of illegal migrants. What's the strategy behind the White House's videos they've been putting out on this, and can you kind of talk us through the thinking on these videos?
Sure. I think the White House and our entire government clearly is leaning into the message of this president, and we are unafraid to double down and to take responsibility and ownership of the serious decisions that are being made. The president was elected with an overwhelming mandate to launch the largest mass deportation campaign in American history, and that's exactly what he is doing. And to this very day, we are now, I think, 56 or 7 days into the administration by my count. The president still receives an overwhelming public support for the policies that he is enacting. So we are unafraid to message effectively what the president is doing on a daily basis to make our communities safer. And the specific video you referenced, I think it sums up our immigration policy pretty well. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions. First, will President Trump put sanctions on Russia if the talks on Tuesday don't go as hoped? And secondly, have any illegal immigrants self-deported through CBP home yet?
To your first question, it's something the president has floated, and certainly he's willing to do if necessary. I don't have anything to read out, and I would never get ahead of the president on such a serious decision. To your second question about the CBP Home app, I would have to check in with the Department of Homeland Security, but it's a great question, and we're very proud to repurpose this app, which the Biden administration abused to facilitate the mass illegal entry of illegal immigrants into our country. It was like a fast pass at Disneyland. That's not happening under this administration. We are encouraging illegal immigrants to actively self-deport to maybe save themselves from being in one of these fun videos.
Caroline.
Sure. John, good to see you.
After President Trump strafe-bombed the Houthis yesterday, he said that if they retaliate, he was going to personally hold Iran accountable for that. Holding them accountable, what would that look like?
Well, I would defer you to what the president put out this morning, John, where he said very clearly, I will read it, "Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks being made by Houthi, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen, who are hated by the Yemeni people, are all created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they haven't lost control. They are dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire." That is a statement from the President of the United States just moments ago. I have nothing additional to share, but our message to Iran is you better take this president seriously, and I think the Houthis learned that the hard way this past weekend. As I said in my opening remarks, there's a new sheriff in town, and this president is not just going to sit on his hands and allow terrorists to launch attacks on commercial vessels and U.S. naval ships. Those actions will not be tolerated. Sure, Edward.
Yeah, thanks. Caroline, on the economy. So after mostly a down week last week in the economy, you've been very vocal as well as other cabinet members about how we're in a transition and about how this economic transition, and there's a long-term plan for tariffs on this. How concerned is the president that the markets and Americans, for lack of a better term, will freak out over these tariffs and be concerned about a long-term plan?
Sure. I think I've been asked this question and answered this question respectfully, Edward. We are in a period of transition. The president has made that clear. He also has made his belief in tariffs and what they will do for our great country clear, restoring wealth back to our country. And if you look at the president's first-term economic formula, massive deregulation, tax cuts, lowering the cost of living with an energy boom, which the American people can expect soon. Wall Street and Main Street should both be assured by what President Trump did in his first term. It's the exact same formula. In fact, I would argue it's even better this time around. And if you look at some of the economic indicators in the last week, the latest CPI report last week beat expectations. Inflation is cooling. Core inflation dropped for the first time in 4 months. The national average of the price of gas is down 42 cents from 1 year ago. And there was also a new report out this morning about wholesale egg prices. They continue to fall. A dozen eggs are now $3.10 cheaper since January 24th. First, that's a 47% decrease overall. So I think the American people do have great reason to be optimistic about this economy. And as I've said repeatedly, it continues to be true. The administration has a whole of government effort to fix the economic mess created by Biden.
So the president's pointed to that April 2nd tariff deadline, so to speak. Is the tariff back and forth sort of done now? We're just all looking towards April 2nd?
Well, I think the president would tell you that all options are always on the table, and he's always ready to respond if he feels the United States is being unfairly treated by our allies and also our competitors around the world. But yes, the April 2nd day is a big day for the country, as the president has said. Reciprocal tariffs will go into effect. We'll have more details on that as the date nears, but our entire trade team, Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, the vice president has been quite involved in these talks and discussions as well about what that will look like. And the president, as you always do, you will hear from him directly on it. Deborah Saunders, how are you?
Fine, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Former Pardon Attorney Elizabeth Warner believes she was fired for refusing to sign off on a move to restore gun rights to actor no do. DOJ's Todd Blanche says no. But I want to know, is the administration dedicated to restoring gun rights to felons who serve their times? I ask this because I've talked to people who were pardoned. They felt that was important. Of course, this isn't necessarily for a pardon. What is the president's thinking on this issue?
Sure.
After you've served your sentence, should you have gun rights?
It's an important question. It is one I have not spoken to the president about on his views, but I will take it to him this afternoon. I will tell him you asked, and we will get you an answer. You're welcome. Jonathan.
Thanks a lot, Carolina. A question for you regarding administration complying with judges' orders. I want to ask about an administration spokesperson who's the border czar, Tom Homan. He was on Fox News.
We love Tom Homan.
And he was talking about the deportations, and he said the following. He said, "We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think," which seems to me, just reading that, that you don't care what orders come from the federal bench. Is that the case? Can you clarify that, please?
Well, I think since you just quoted Tom, I'll quote Tom. He said, I don't care what the judges think, but I can assure you that the administration is complying with the court order. And as I've said repeatedly from this podium, all of the flights that were subject to the judge's written order departed before the written order, and we are prepared to make that case in court later this afternoon. Reagan.
And then if I could, on Russia, the president, as you pointed out, Caroline, made some remarks on Air Force One coming back from Florida, and he seemed to indicate that the conversation tomorrow concerns essentially dividing up assets, dividing up territory associated with the war in Ukraine. Has President Zelensky given President Trump that authority? Is that what is going to take place tomorrow?
Well, as you know, the president and his entire national security team have been engaged directly with President Zelensky and the Ukrainian team, and that has been part of the discussion between the president's team and the Ukrainians. As for where those lines will be drawn or any specifics, I am not going to get into that from this podium. It would be unwise for me to get ahead of the president's call with President Putin tomorrow. But again, I can assure you, in the effort of transparency, as this president always does, you will hear from him or one of us directly after that phone call tomorrow. Reagan.
Thank you, Carol. There's a lot of focus on the judicial branch right now. The president has about 40 judicial appointments that he could make at this moment. Do you have an update on what the timeline would look like for those judicial appointments? And does the president have a list of potential nominees that he's vetting?
I do not have an update on a timeline, nor do I have a list, but I can certainly have our team gather that for you and provide it. You're welcome. Sure. Go ahead. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. So the president is visiting the Kennedy Center this afternoon to
He
attend
is.
a board meeting. A question about what happened a few weeks ago. The Kennedy Center got bomb threats targeting a performance by Shingun Performing Arts, which is an American company showcasing China before communism. This company has been targeted, unfortunately, by the CCP for years. I'm wondering if this administration has a response to this, and also as the president is putting an emphasis on arts and culture, what's the administration's message to potentially foreign state actors who are trying to disrupt that in the U.S.?
Don't disrupt it. This administration will take that very seriously and hold you accountable. We obviously condemn any violence or threats of violence against American institutions. And the president will be traveling to the Kennedy Center later this afternoon. I look forward to going with him. As you know, he is now the chairman of the board of the Kennedy Center, where he hopes to restore arts and culture that embrace American tradition, don't disparage it, as we have unfortunately seen over the past several years. The president will be doing a tour of the center. In his business developer mind, I'm sure he will make some recommendations on how the center itself can be improved, but also will be discussing perhaps some future plays and musicals and theatrical programs that the center will be hosting under his new leadership and the board's new leadership. Daniel.
Will the president be discussing with Putin tomorrow the future of Volodymyr Zelensky, sort of a follow-up to John's question?
Again, I've been asked and answered this question now. I'm not going to get ahead of the president's discussion tomorrow, but after the phone call takes place, I can certainly provide a readout. Daniel.
Caroline, thank you so much. You mentioned earlier in the briefing that you guys are at the 10-yard line of peace. Given the amount of progress that you've made in such a short amount of time, is that an indictment of the previous administration's foreign policy stance, and is it just more proof that you need to talk to people to sort of get things done?
I think so. I think the previous administration is the reason this war began. As President Trump often says, this war would have never started if he were still in office. It only started because of the incompetence and the weakness of the previous administration. And President Trump is very proud of the progress that he and his team have made in such a short amount of time. And hopefully tomorrow that progress will move forward. Sure.
Thanks. There have been some media reports just in the last few hours that the administration has decided to withdraw from the International Center for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression against Ukraine, which is designed to hold Putin accountable for war crimes. Are you able to confirm that? And if that has occurred, why has that occurred?
I'm not able to confirm it because I have not heard that. I will caution, I know there have been many inaccurate and misleading reports from Reuters lately, so I would caution anybody taking that seriously, but I can check in and get back to you.
Rachel. Caroline. Is it the president's belief that the Justice Department should be investigating members of the January 6th Select Committee? Is he directing the DOJ to do that?
As the president made it very clear in his address on Friday, I believe some of you were there, I was there, he made his vision for what he would like to see of the Department of Justice very clear, but he said that he has appointed great people in Attorney General Pam Bondi and also in our FBI Director Kash Patel to do what they think is best for our justice system and to stop the weaponization of justice that we saw under the previous administration against not just President Trump but his supporters as well. We want to restore the Department of Justice to an institution that focuses on fighting law and order and crime and putting real criminals behind bars, not targeting Americans because of their religion or their political speech. We saw that under the previous administration and it's unacceptable to this president.
And just to follow up really quickly on just Homan's comments from earlier, a few weeks ago in the Oval Office, the president said he will always abide by the courts. We heard what Tom Homan said earlier today. So I'm only asking just to be clear for the American people. It is the administration's belief that that you feel like you are bound to comply by the judge's orders?
We are complying with the judge's orders.
Question on the storm.
Sure.
What role does the president see for FEMA with these storms? He's talking about getting rid of FEMA, states handling their own disasters. Does he plan to change how the federal government responds to these storms?
There hasn't been a change yet. That doesn't mean there couldn't be in the future. But as of right now, the president, the entire administration are actively monitoring the storms, as I said. In fact, before I came down here, there was an email note in my inbox from the Department of Homeland Security on what they are actually doing state by state across the board. So rest assured, Secretary Noem and her team is on it, and I would defer you to the Department of Homeland Security for any further details.
One more question. The president referenced power plants with a conversation with Vladimir Putin. What is he referring to with power plants? What is that?
There's a power plant that is on the border of Russia and Ukraine that was up for discussion with the Ukrainians, and he will address it in his call with Putin tomorrow.
The nuclear plant.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Caroline?
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you if you would be releasing more granular data about the people who were sent to El Salvador this week. Particularly, will you be releasing their names?
I don't believe so because of the privacy concerns at this point in time. That doesn't mean we won't eventually. I would defer you to the Department of Homeland Security for more details on the individuals on the flights, but we have been incredibly transparent in giving you the breakdown of the numbers and also some of the crimes committed by these heinous criminals and individuals: kidnapping, sexual abuse of a child, robbery, aggravated assault on a police officer. I would remind everybody in this room that Tren de Aragua is a foreign terrorist organization operating within the United States of America because the previous administration allowed them to invade our country. These are monsters who tortured, raped, and murdered a 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungre. They murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. They led a multi-state sex trafficking operation involving smuggling women into the United States, holding them in stash houses in Louisiana, Florida, New Jersey, Texas, and Virginia, and forcing them into prostitution. They kidnapped and murdered a 33-year-old woman in Texas. They sexually and physically assaulted a woman and her daughter in Wisconsin. They conducted a mass shooting in Illinois. They peddled untraceable ghost guns across New York City, took over an Aurora, Colorado apartment complex where they kidnapped and tortured victims. And by the way, many of you in the mainstream media said that didn't happen. It turned out that it did. And because of the effective immigration policies of this administration, those foreign terrorists were detained and they are no longer operating on American soil, and we have President Trump to thank for that. We'll see you guys later at the Kennedy Center. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Caroline.
Ooh, I don't think I'd want to be a reporter in the mainstream media who's so left that they can't even ask real questions. You see, as I was watching that, I was shocked. I heard, I had to write it down. Can you prove who these illegals are and that they're actually in a gang called the Tres Leches? Can you prove that? And I wish he just said, can you prove that they're not? That would have been the best answer. Can you prove, who the hell are they? It ain't like they got driver's license and IDs. Hey, how you doing? Tres Leches of America. What are you talking about? We're trying to fingerprint them. We're trying to do ocular scans and stuff like that. How do you prove? Tell me, since you doubt, you think we're just out there rounding people up and sticking them on planes and sending them over here. Do they just have tattoos? Is that it? That's how you're picking them out? These people are insufferable. Caitlin Collins, retire. Just seriously, just retire. Your resting bitch face isn't going to work anymore. Nobody cares the stupid questions you ask. Okay, so understand, this was a verbal order. The judge said, turn that around, bring it back. Okay, so you're going to have a hearing today, right? On the 250 people that got sent over. What's the hearing for? Oh, I decree from, I'm the grand poobah here of Tres Leches, and I command you to fly them back. I don't even know where they are. They're in the hands of somebody else at this point. I can't, nothing I can do. Not one of them asked at this point, under whose jurisdiction are these people at this point? Why are you even having a hearing? It's over. It's done. We're finished. What do you want to do? Send SEAL Team 6 in to rescue the 260, Trens de la Laguas, whatever they're called? We're gonna go in and do a mission, and we're gonna extract all of these gangbangers. Bring them back on another country's soil because you say so. I don't think y'all thought this question out. They're gone. They're not coming back. They're never coming back. You're going to have to deal with it. Or not. Be upset, wet your pants, sit there like petulant children. It's too bad. Oh, well, Tom Homan said he's going to ignore the orders. So, ask Tom Homan. I speak for the president. Yeah, but Tom, I don't care what Tom said. Over and over. Oh, and the best part, the absolute best one. I don't know. Maybe you should just be a reporter. Be a reporter and do what you're supposed to do. Report or something. These people are horrible. Absolutely horrible in what they're doing. Makes no sense whatsoever. None. Zero. Makes no sense. But this is what they want you to think, and this is what they want you to do. All right, so Ashley, if you're still watching, understand this might be my last show on Rumble, if you know what I mean. So just, you want to talk to somebody, talk to them. In any event, I'm pissed. So anyway, let's continue. You go, Caroline. Tell them like it is, absolutely for sure. I don't know where they are. I believe they're swimming with the fishes. And I love how she hit it head on. Hey, did you pay? There's rumors out there. You paid, El Salvador to take these people. Yeah, we wrote them a check for $6 million, and we smiled when we did it. Oh, so we couldn't catch you in a lie. Nope, we sent $6 million to El Salvador and said, take these idiots. And El Salvador said, bring them. We got you. Not ducking that whatsoever. Well, great point. How stupid these people. These people receiving, they were happy to get that. You got to think these things through. And they're having this hearing today with the pissed off judge. The pissed off. I can tell you what the judge is going to say. Here's what the judge is going to say. The judge is going to say, "Don't do it again." Or else what? What do you got to do? Here's my phone. Call a U.S. Marshal, okay? Call somebody who cares. 1-800, I don't care. Who are you going to call? What are you going to do if Tom Homan and some of these guys just ship them out? You didn't say anything about midnight flights bringing these people in. So you can better stake out every airport you can because there's going to be a lot of people on the runway. Just let's go. Because you can't do anything. You're feckless as a judge. You're feckless as the media. You got no teeth. There's nothing you can do to this man. You may try. God knows you may try. She mentioned something I want to show you, and she mentioned Trump's Truth Social post. I want to bring this up and show it to you. Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks being made by Houthis, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen, who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there's no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they lost control, but they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences. And this is one of the ones I haven't seen him before. He signed this one. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Your move, Houthis. Go for it. Call his bluff. Watch what happens. You're gonna go away. He's not playing anymore. He's got nothing to lose. You tried to take him out. We knew there were Iranian assassination squads out there. You want to poke this guy? You're spoiling for the wrong ass fight. I mean, like, I wouldn't mess with him. No, this dude has nothing to lose, and he's letting you know publicly. Don't do it. Don't do it. Well, okay. You'd be stupid. Tin Lee, that is exactly what an ultimatum is. I hope all Iranians are lunatics. Yep. Send the Houthis to El Salvador. Yeah, another $6 million check. Get rid of them. So as you're seeing right now, these people are getting free vacations down at, Camp El Salvador, and there's nothing, I mean, literally nothing this judge can do. And I called it before we started, and it wasn't like I was being a Svengali or I had some crystal ball. I knew they wouldn't be able to resist. Did you just ignore what the court said? The court that we rely on as leftists, the courts that we're going to be using to stomp you out, Trump? Did you just ignore what they said? No, not really. It was, the planes were already in the air. Sorry. But we didn't ignore you. We were just doing what we had to do, and when we found out, it was too late. Sorry. It's going to be a lot of that coming up. Oh, what order? So you're expecting that when you're in court in D.C., you're hitting the gavel on some kind of order, and you're expecting to telepathically have that hit President Trump's desk before he makes any moves. Like, he should be waiting. Or maybe what you're saying is, this is what the judge may do. Before you make any more executive orders, run it through me. Send me the executive order, and then I'll review it. Okay, President Trump, this is your new executive order? Let me look at it. You think that's what's going to happen? And hold it for as long as you possibly can. Because that ain't ever going to happen. Nope, not going to happen. So I just want to know, you heard General Flynn earlier, yeah, you guys got no authority to do any of this stuff. And you even have less authority to actually enforce it. So what are you going to do next? Game's on you. It's in your court. Literally. You're having a hearing for no reason. You got Democrat and Republican attorneys going, you're talking about wasting time. The Department of Justice is in there at a hearing doing this. What do you want me to do? Why are we having this hearing? Your order is moot. It no longer exists. What are you suing? We're suing, what's the name of this case? Oh yeah, we're suing to make sure that these guys don't get deported. Well, that should pretty much put your order in the shredder at this point. It's over. Period. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. Talk meanly, put out some sort of statement so that the press says, look, the judge spanked President Trump. You see, he did something wrong. That's all you want, and that's all they want. At this point, that's what this is all about. Let him say something stern. Let him say something, condescending, and that way the press can run with it. Meanwhile, most of America, an overwhelming part of America, is looking at all this side-eyed going, yeah, we don't want these people here. Remember, the Democrats' rating before all of this was 29%. And you've got people in the Democrat Party out there screaming because these people were deported. They are screaming that illegal gang members who threaten communities were deported. I hope, like I said, Jasmine Crockett, all of you, please, please get to every microphone you possibly can and defend keeping these people in the country. I think it's going to do so well for you. They can't do anything. Trump is in head of every department. Yeah, can't call the marshals, can't call the FBI, can't even call the Secret Service. Maybe call a local sheriff's department, but they don't have any jurisdiction. You're done. Cancel the hearing. You realize right now, there is no reason for this hearing to have to take place. This guy just wants to make some media headlines for the left. And I'm sure what's going to come out of it is he's going to say he violated the order, which everyone's going to say, so. Second part of it is, what are you going to do about it? We told him he can't do it again. Okay, what if he does? Then this is going to happen. And how are you going to enforce that? We'll think of something. Yeah, we are not turning into UK and Paris. Now, I thought they were going to bring out Conor McGregor because he talked earlier, but he definitely showed her, some stuff on how to fight. P.S. want to be judge. I don't know. Just imagine you're going in and they're suing for something that's already taken place, and all you will have, I guarantee you, I would put money on if it was DraftKings, if it was a football guy. I guarantee you, the only thing he's going to have is a stern order that they can go ahead and run through the media. The judge, the district court judge of Washington gave President Trump a stern warning, a grave warning, that he can never do this again, or else we'll be right back here having this same kind of meeting because I can't do anything. What army's going to make us? The left is crying big time, the California legislator. It's not just California, they're crying everywhere. They are a party without any kind of platform whatsoever. That's it. I love doing this. I mean, it really is because they do it to themselves because it's so idiotic, and we're watching a president who has surrounded himself with people. He wants them to do their job. Do you realize at this point, many of you may not even understand, I want to bring something to your attention right now. Earlier I was talking about how President Trump is keeping a focus out here. He's not letting them see what's back there. RFK Jr.'s ducked down here behind the chair, and Pete Hegseth comes out, pops his head out once in a while. Kristi Noem comes out with her nice look, and she puts out a video or something. But you know who you don't see? I mean, is a ghost. And probably the most integral part of this whole thing. When's the last time you've seen John Ratcliffe out in front of any cameras? He's truly turned into a spook. And John Ratcliffe, in case you don't know, is the director of the CIA. The guy who's finding out all the information on the Houthis and what's going on here and what's going on there. John Ratcliffe. Nobody talks about him. And he's back there pulling strings and doing stuff, and nobody knows what he's doing. I bet you're not going to hear much about Dan Bongino. I bet you're going to hear even less about Kash Patel. I think those people are going to get behind the chair here. And if Trump's going to say, I'll take care of it. You guys do what you do. I'll be the one, out there taking the arrows. John Ratcliffe, to me, is probably, he and Tulsi are probably the two people orchestrating most of what you're seeing. The CIA and Tulsi being NSA or NSI, National Security Advisor. Those two people, they got all the gadgets. They're the ones tweaking in, listening to people, got their agencies put together. Those are the ones who are finding out what's going on all over the world. And the other ones, RFK Jr., I don't know if RFK Jr. has even held a press conference yet. Haven't seen him. I've seen Marco Rubio. We see Caroline Leavitt. Obviously, we see President Trump. We see Pete Hegseth every once in a while. He'll do a video from his office, but not like a true presser. But you don't hear nothing from John Ratcliffe. Tulsi Gabbard, she'll post a little video on X from herself, but no big press conferences. What do you think they're doing? You think they're not doing anything? Shh, go ahead, Pam. Get on television. Go talk to Hannity. Let them hate you, okay? They're going to hate you. They think the Epstein list is everything. Even the MAGA people, oh, she didn't give us the Epstein list. Oh, my God, she's awful. She needs to be replaced. Oh, my God. Moron alert. Moron alert. You start seeing people talk about that. You now know. You should have extreme comfort and knowledge that what you're seeing is a charade happening in front of you, orchestrated by Donald Trump because he knows what his priorities are and he knows what he needs to do. You even heard General Flynn actually describe to you, situational awareness, situational operations. What are they working on? The stuff that you don't see is more important than the stuff people are complaining about. And I'm going to pull up that oath this evening, and I'm going to have that, and I'm going to have the Lyceum. Yep. Oh, yeah, TDS is a mental illness. So I'm going to be back at 7 o'clock is the second show, which will compile a lot more news. And so you guys can all come back. We'll give out some hoodies tonight at 7 o'clock. Let me check and see where we are. I feel bad. I actually do feel bad for some of these people. Because the media, you could see the sullen faces that they really had nothing to talk about. Just upset, almost. Because if it gets to the point, and I want you to think about this, if it gets to the point where I can foretell what they're going to say, what would please me is when you begin understanding where they're going. You understand what the next press conference, what they're going to say. When you start being able to call the balls and strikes and say, oh, I was right. Because their predictability is what makes her job so easy. I mean, it's not an easy job that she can make it look easy. Because if I can predict what they're going to say, she certainly can predict what the questions are going to be. They don't have any questions that aren't predictable. And if they do, she's like, well, go talk to Tom Homan. Go do your job. Her comebacks are her best. Oh, you got a problem with Tom Homan? Go talk to him. Do your job. Well, how do you know that the illegals that were here illegally actually were illegal? How do you know they weren't? Oh, did you want me to run it through you? Hey, here's so-and-so, and he looks like he's fat. He's got some tattoos. Nobody knows who the hell this guy is. And all he keeps saying is, pledge, trace down there. We got trace, whatever it's called. So, how about this? I put you in a room with them. When you come out, you tell me how you feel. Oh, that would be fun. Hey, Trace guy, come here. Limp-wristed soy boy reporter wants to talk to you, okay? Have at it. We'll be back. Clean up. Oh, my God, these people are just completely useless. You look, I was going to take a screenshot of that room. And if I took a screenshot of that room of the people asking those questions and complaining about, how do you know that they're actually Trace Leches? Not one of those people would you want protecting you. It's the most stupid question out there. Hey, even if we make a mistake, they'll find out over there. If he's not Trace Leches, he's still not supposed to be here. So why am I worried about it? Why am I worried about, this guy who may have got caught up in something? It makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. Sometimes it makes no sense. I think, who is that? Styx? Sometimes it makes no sense. Sometimes it makes no sense at all. You guys know what song that's from? As I'm getting ready to do super chats, can you tell me where that's from? Sometimes it makes no sense. Sometimes I feel like I'm just gonna leave it at that. See if you guys can answer that. I'll check. All right, so let me go here to Fazul. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Fighting Irish, Notre Dame. Thank you, brother. Velka Jackson. Funny bird flu only affected chickens. And many people had said, for quite some time, chickens don't have what's called a gestation period, like like humans. But they said, hey, it's going to take 3, 4, 5 months to regenerate all these chickens, and then all these chickens, again, once they're regenerated, they do what chickens do. They lay more eggs. It was just a matter of time. Couple that with a lack of demand. Hey, honey, we're going to have to do something else besides eat eggs. Okay. By the way, I can't tell you how many eggs my family ate this past weekend on spring break. Went to the restaurants. Guess what? They had eggs. Just saying. All right. Vielka again. I love the TDA video, Bravo Salvador. Do you know that video? These people here made me take it down. It was offensive. Red Bucks, thank you. Joe Panico, thank you. Disco Mama, great show, Barry. General Flynn, true patriot. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. RF1, investigate Fauci to the max before the next outbreak. If he stays here, because if they find out those pardons were BS, he's going to be gone. I would if I was him. Farrell Borderline, whoo, get them all out. Yes. Fume Drummer. Caroline won today's battle with the press with the line about the French not speaking German. I forgot about that. They want their Statue of Liberty back. Go pound sand. And you're lucky you're not speaking German. Oh, my gosh. Oh, good gosh. She just... Ooh, that had to hurt. That had to hurt something awful. Redeemed Patriot. Factually answered questions with a twist of troll. May I have another? Petros, these court judges need to be heavily investigated, for sure. Barry, with the content you provided, most White House reporters look like amateurs. They look that way because they've pledged their souls to something that they can't possibly talk against at this point. And some of these people in their careers have to be sitting back on, I may have made the wrong decision, but now I can't extricate myself out of it. Yeah, Tammy Bruce is coming up, but I can't cover it right now. I wanted to see did anybody know what song that was from, but I kept talking, so they probably missed it. Let me see if anybody. Hold on. Oh yeah, Harley Helling says Styx. Jim Cateron, Man in the Wilderness by Styx. Very good. Dude on the couch, Styx. It makes no sense at all. Some of you guys are my age. Listen to the same music. Brat Girl, Man in the Wilderness. Love it. Tam and Brent, Man in the Wilderness. No, Jack said Cristobal. Nope, it was Man in the Wilderness. I wonder how many of y'all had to Google it or knew it off the top of your head when Tommy Shaw lit into that. I mean, the story behind him writing that song was just pretty incredible. He was on tour, and he just one night, just that song came to him. Another year has passed me by. Still, I look at myself and cry. What have I become? Great song. Didn't mean to go into lyrics like that, but that's just me. I love music, and that was from way back, probably 78, 79. Man in the Wilderness. Great song, though. If you haven't heard it, turn it on. See, that's one of the things that is problematic on YouTube. We should be able to just talk about a song like that and just put it on and let everybody go back to their high school days or college, whenever you were, and wow, man, I remember this song from 1979, and just listen to that, listen to the words of that song, and then the introspection. Yes. Yeah, Mega Mama says, I love Styx. Exactly. All right, everybody. The only song I know of Styx is Babe. That's why the guy's no longer in the band, because it's like, come on, man. Mr. Roboto? No, we want to rock. I want to rock. Absolutely. All right, don't get me started on music, because if I get started on music, I'll be here for another hour, and I got to get ready for the second show, go have some lunch, take some what do you call it, throat lozenge, and be ready. All right, here we go. After party coming up. See you guys at 7 p.m. tonight. We've got hoodies on the way. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you at 7 p.m. Bye.